right in the heart with a silver bullet.
Yeah. I think they plotting on me. Don't wipe their feet when they enter the lab. I feel a cold stare. Think I ain't looking. Maybe because I'm focused. No hands out for the hopeless. Funny bullets, I caught some shots. Another piece of the puzzle connecting dots. You can find the truth of laughter and liquor. One more shot to an empty bottle. If you gon' walk there like a model for me, like I don't see her intentions all in my scope. At a time we were just friends, with advice to hand. Nothing special, I was dead broke, but we still got hope. Don't take my words, just pack and issue that raw dough. Just pack and issue that raw dough. Pack and issue that raw dough. To the people that listen to my people, they know that I do care. With their hands in the air, rocking side to side. Now my work, yeah, it's time to ride. Where my niggas at? My niggas ain't my niggas no more. Push me to the bag, label to change up his swag. I do it for us, I'm pro-black. Don't rock it the sheet, yeah. Wouldn't be so all type of African shit. Just rock a thing for fade, swagger tailor-made. Polo collars and fly kicks. Just polo collars and fly kicks. Exclusive shit, not get wig. Keep it coming, just don't stop. The revolution starts with shot.
I'm respectful to my people, and I want to represent my people, and I don't want to be a bad representative. I can't be blind, let the blind lead the blind, they all follow the good.
Now my mama said, baby, act like you got sense. They act like I only act right for Lent. Been living in purgatory, but I'm nosing for heaven. Not sure if I'm getting in, cause I ain't paid a reference. Who looking at me when I ain't looking, judging my character? I can't put down my guard on this planet, back in the camera. Ready for my close-up, the lens gets bigger. Won't play me on BET, cause I am not a nigga. My heart is like a powder keg, ready to explode. Smell like strange too, cause I'm America's cologne. It started with the hello, think you're a nice fellow. You're ballin' like Carmelo, you treat you like Othello. L.A.R. be the star, turn a rapper to a prophet. Bulletproof 306, keep your hands in your pocket. Jordan rules for my life, you contain them, can't stop them. I'm niggas sky high, so the clouds can't drop them. My life is like a miracle, my words are just imperial. I'm edible, I'm audible, I'm digital, I'm visual. Spit like Komodo, go like Bruce Lee, Roy B. And the mean as bad as Mofo in the dojo. Life is so amazing and raps like Jesus. They said hip hop is dead, but today look like Easter.
Now I wake up in the morning, I'm black and handsome as ever. However, you see me as strange fruit, will it ever happen, not again. A crooked just a homicide, he know it's self-defense. But since I'm black and since he white, he got no common sense. That's 1969, and he ain't Jesus Christ. He ain't coming back on Easter, he ain't got a second life. You know I'm right? Hold up, look. Now the sirens in my window here, pull it over. License and registration, gun ain't never in the holster. Plus, that man black too, he wanna act too. A nigga with an attitude and a badge too. A couple tattoos, hoping I act a fool so he can squeeze too. But it ain't nothing different, they the same thing. They pull him over, he gon' get the same thing. Maybe 2 up in his brain, 21 gun salute. Last words was I'm a copy, last heard fuck you. And he ain't coming back, you know I'm black like Jesus. But I ain't coming back for Easter, y'all say goodbye. Everybody cry, second line. But when the music stop, move on. Cause I ain't coming home, they know I'm black like Jesus. But I ain't coming back for Easter, everybody cry. Y'all say goodbye, second line. But when the music stop, move on. Cause I ain't coming home, I'm gone. And now she on welfare. Lost here, daddy can't live there. So we ain't there, and life ain't fair. But the food free, and the rent cheap. His roaches where you sleep. He still came around and taught you baseball. Bought a Barbie dolls, he raised all of y'all. And now the kids adults, they both up in the court. She want that child support, he on that child support. But he ain't never taught him baseball, and she ain't never bought him Barbie dolls. They both never there, no, never, not at all. Saying, well, pull your pants up, go while your ass out. They looking back saying, why, y'all ain't ever in the house? You got it backwards, don't you? I'm saying, cause we still preaching unity. And it's supposed to be family first in community. Got it in church to $1 for your blessing. We made in God's image, thinking with Satan's mind. They got us crossed up, now Judas is Caesar. America bury me, but I ain't coming back for Easter. Yeah, they know I'm black like Jesus. But I ain't coming back for Easter, y'all say goodbye. Everybody cry, second line. But when the music stop, move on. Cause I ain't coming home, they know I'm black like Jesus. But I ain't coming back for Easter, everybody cry. Y'all say goodbye, second line. But when the music stop, move on. Cause I ain't coming home, I'm gone.
What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Subscribe or die trying. You see the thumbnail. This live is about to be about exactly what I'm talking about. So yesterday I'm working, and this might be Risky's channel pops up, and it's like a generational debate, like basically between millennials and Gen X, and neither side wanting to be disrespected or liking to be disrespected and having views of the other generation. And baby boomers came into the mix because of baby boomer shenanigans. So as I'm listening to it, a few things happened that really caught my attention, and I started thinking about it because it was something about the whole situation that made me think something I've been thinking for years. I don't think Generation X gets along with baby boomers, millennials, and zillennials because we're like the culmination of the silent generation and the greatest generation. And if y'all ever heard that saying, tough times make strong men make easier times make weak men, and weak men make tough times, and then the tough times make strong men. So when it comes to generations, we have a communication problem because I think us as Gen X, we're out of place. And what I mean is the vast majority, I'm a lot of this is stereotype, by the way. You know what I'm saying? Because I know these things fit in every generation. I'm just saying we see bigger populations in generations of certain things than others. So that's what this is. So since I'm in Gen X, a lot of us we knew our grandparents, great grandparents. You know what I mean? And they came from tough times. They came from, the Great Depression, or, World War II, Korean War, stuff, Jim Crow. They came from all of that. You know what I mean? And what happened was they were the ones primarily raising Generation X. The baby boomers, who would be our parents, they're the grandparents of millennials and zillennials. And what people don't understand about this is what it comes across is that we have two different ideologies and mindsets, because our moral compass is different from their moral compass, i.e. Gen X's moral compass is different from an approach is different from baby boomers and millennials, zillennials. And this is why, Gen X, you can call Gen X trauma, and you can call we're trauma and we're toxic, and then you can go with we call millennials, baby boomers all soft. And it's because of what happened. And what I mean is, I want to talk to my aunt about this yesterday, because she's a boomer. And I was like, I noticed this over the years because my grandparents had harsher times. They're the ones who had to drop out of school in third, fourth grade to help raise the family. They're the ones to work and whatnot. They're the ones who, dad died when you was 9. They're the ones who, I had to work and grind all the time. That's what they were doing, right? So when they had kids, they kept working, they kept grinding, and their kids had a better life than them. So that was the baby boomers. The boomers had a better life. Then you had, the civil rights movement, all that, and quote unquote society was quote unquote changing. So with boomers, you saw a lot of that free spirit. Saw more free spirited stuff. Not going because I don't think Woodstock is baby boomers era, but it might be. But you saw those people be more aloof and more, fun loving and free. And all of this stuff that we hear now about, feelings and I need to manifest and I'm dealing with trauma and this is toxic. That came across with us with boomers because boomers would talk about stuff. Let's talk, let's talk, let's talk, let's talk, let's talk, let's talk. We're gonna talk about it. And with boomers, it was a lot of talk, but really no action. So the silent generation, the greatest generation, wasn't in the talking. It was about doing stuff. So they taught Gen X how to do stuff, and they kind of like they was like these kids. They was like their kids is just they too wild. You get what I'm saying? So that's what happened. So society started changing, and boomers were it was a big population. Boomers are a huge population as far as um, people. That's why even in white America when 55 and up die, that takes almost half of their population. So Gen X is a smaller generation because it really was called baby boomers, were the baby boomers, and we in Generation X were baby busts because the boomers weren't having babies like that. They were more, I'm going to travel, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be free, I want to do what I want to do. It was that type of mentality. So a lot of times, what y'all seeing is like the partying, the drug culture, the free spirited culture. To us in Gen X, that comes from boomers because Gen X was a generation of latchkey kids because the boomers were just out. I'm not saying boomers wasn't like working and doing stuff like that, but boomers had a tendency to be hedonistic. You get what I'm saying? Hedonistic, free spirited, and all that. So because of that, it made the times harsher for Gen X. So what I mean is, while that the free spirited stuff for boomers, you know, they were caught up in the drugs a lot. Now you see Gen X, we got a lot of potheads, we got a lot of weed heads. But I think what y'all don't remember is weed was looked down on in the 80s. They tried to make that whole campaign, it's a gateway drug. Weed is the gateway drug to cocaine and heroin. So that was a thing. And we were caught in the crack era. We were caught with the super predators part, as far as black boys, and what y'all didn't realize, I guess, what some of you millennials don't get, and I'm at the very tail end of Gen X, dead serious. Like one more month, I could have been a millennial. Um, so what winds up happening is we had a different experience. We had a completely different experience with life. Like we still had, some of the Jim Crow tactics that were done to us in Gen X. So when we look at boomers was just too, they ran from responsibility. They ran from responsibilities a lot. And we're not, because we want to talk about how kids are raised now and the difference. Then you got to understand, in the 80s, there was a lot of single mothers. There was a whole lot of single mothers in the 80s. It was a growing thing in the 80s. The big difference was the single mother support system was more intact. I know, Abdul, I'm gonna get to that. But a lot of people's, like you lived with your grandparents. You might have been raised by your grandparents. You was with your aunts and uncles. You was with your cousins. You was with, what I'm saying, other friends and their family members. And even if there wasn't, your dad wasn't there if it wasn't there. if your dad wasn't there, there were other men around. And the thing about it, even when we talk about like the matriarchy or the gynocracy or whatever, you got to understand our grandmothers were in a silent generation or the greatest generation, and they really wasn't having it with the shenanigans. They really wasn't. So what you see now of mothers not being checked and women not being checked in public, and everything can slide. Our grandparents wasn't playing that. Our grandparents would be in their 50s and 60s and pull up on our parents. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you ain't finna do that. Like, you do that somewhere else. You don't do that around me. You don't do that around this child. It was different. So what you have is a lot of lackadaisical free spiritedness that Generation X doesn't like. Even when it comes to the difference in our culture as far as spirituality. If you notice, I would say Gen X is probably the last of the spiritual people, because we were grown up, we grew up in church. We were drugged to church by our grandparents. We had to get a relationship with God, and they wasn't joking about it. And they wanted us to be spiritual, and they wanted us to know right and wrong, and they wanted us to know good and evil, and they wanted us to know heaven and hell. And even they knew some of the things in the Bible, and they read the Bible. We act like, people back in the day were just dumb and illiterate, and they couldn't adjust to technology like we could because we were younger. But when it came down to the classic information of life, they were light years ahead of everybody. They were able to do all of that stuff. So now when you see this less spirituality and just kind of anything goes, it's kind of a Studio 54 mentality. So a lot of times Gen X does not really it doesn't really compute to us like that. We understand living your life and having a good time, but you got to understand, we don't get I'm going to ignore my responsibilities because what's more important is to have fun. We don't get down like that at all. Like I'm not going to say at all. That's a little bit too much. But I'm going to say we don't get down like that in a general consensus. So what you're seeing now, like, people are saying, Gen X, we're going to get the brunt of the issues, like your generation failed, and just like we said, the baby boomers failed, and y'all making excuses just like the baby boomers making excuses. And it's like, no, we're not trying to make excuses, because Generation X is kind of more harsh. We're not good at giving you an excuse. We'll give you an explanation, but even we look down on excuses. We're just trying to tell you, hey, this happened. That put a monkey wrench in stuff, but we still went this way. That put a monkey wrench in stuff, but we still went this way. So with us, the communication is, we look at baby boomers and millennials and zillennials as soft, and we can't compute with that. And the interesting thing is, this is why when you look at the political landscape of America, you look at the politicians as idiots and soft, and the vast majority of the people running the country are baby boomers. And you're like, how did the country get so bad? How did we get so much in debt? And for us, it's that whole laissez-faire mentality. Because baby boomers, in a general sense, were a coddled generation. You know what I'm saying? They're a coddled generation. So we're the children of a coddled generation, and y'all don't realize that they were so coddled, they really didn't take care of us as kids, because they figured somebody else would do it. Like, I just want to do my thing, kind of thing. So we look at baby boomers' selfishness as an issue. And now people are like, what's the issue? And we're looking at a thing where we can't communicate. Because when we say something, we might be direct. And as Generation X and boomers and millennials and zillennials, it's like y'all can't take direct conversation. It's like it needs more feeling and more, set the mood type of vibe. And it's like, look, we ain't got time for all of that. If you say you got a problem, and I can understand your problem, and I can figure out a solution, I'm gonna give you the solution. And if you say F me on a solution, then I'm gonna be like F you too. Then I don't talk to me. Like I don't want to hear. Now it becomes a problem. You get what I'm saying? We look at it like either you want solutions to problems or you want to keep having the same problem to discuss a problem. So we look at things a little differently. And why I say it's versus everybody, because it's basically a Generation X mentality looks like we're the out of place group in society. And what I think we haven't communicated is we can see where this is gonna go. And baby boomers can see it, but they don't care like that. Millennials can't see it necessarily, and zillennials can't see it. And what it is you're gonna wind up it's gonna wind up that y'all got all of this technology, but you don't interact with each other. You got all of this technology, but you're not hands-on with anything. So you got all of this technology and all of this information, and instead of utilizing the information, it becomes like pontificating. You know what I'm saying? And procrastinating because I got all the information, but I'm not really going to do anything, like paralysis of analysis. And us in Gen X, we've seen that before because we've seen it with baby boomers parenting us. I'm evolved. I don't have to do this and I don't have to do that, and I'm not doing those old things anymore. And we're gonna go down a new path. And when the issue became, even when baby boomers was parents and going down a new path and trying new things because they didn't want to be like their parents, what they forgot was, how can I say that? They went down a new path, but when they went in the wrong direction, and they got addressed like, yo, we shouldn't have did that. We should have did this. Then the boomers were like, look, I don't even want to talk about that. I don't know what you're talking about. What happened? I wasn't there. I never made that. I never said that. I never did that. And it becomes this lack of accountability. So the society that we're living in right now, we have the same issue with a lack of accountability. You get what I'm saying? So now we got that. That's a problem. It's become a major problem. And people don't realize it, but we know that our grandkids and Gen X, our grandkids and great grandkids, gonna have to do double time, because the way we're looking at it, their parents are really just gonna drop the ball because they can't handle adversity. They can't handle the adversity. So we already know we're gonna be our grandparents. We're gonna be the grandparents who've been grinding our whole life and leaving money for the next generation and trying to take care of the grandkids and raise the grandkids, because these kids ain't really doing a job. You get what I'm saying? And not that they ain't doing it, they don't want to do it. So we're looking at millennials and zillennials like, oh shit, yeah, this is about to get ugly, dog. This is about to get real ugly. Because one of the young problems is the drug addiction. We've seen that same drug addiction, not the same drugs, but we've seen this idea where, I gotta get drugs in my system before I do anything, or I gotta have a good time before I do anything, or I have to go do something to free my mind and feel free before I do anything. And it's like, listen, man, this ain't gonna end well. And this is I'm gonna manifest it, and I'm gonna change my energy, and I'm gonna change how you feel, and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And it's like, look, bro, when this ends bad, I'm not finna pick up the pieces for you. And that's why, that's why it becomes an issue. Same thing with Generation X. We were an angry, aggressive generation. And we see millennials and zillennials being angry, but we don't see them as aggressive. And the difference is this: we see baby boomers, millennials, and zillennials as passive aggressive, and so we don't understand. And they're angry and they're passive aggressive, and that doesn't really sit well with us, because we're from a generation where if you really got a problem, we finna get active. It's not going to be I'm not going to talk to you snarky without something going with that, or without that being on the table, that something's going with that. So what we have a failure to communicate. But what we have is this idea that, oh, I can disrespect you, and as long as as long as I don't put my hands on you. And we don't come from that generation. We come from a generation, if you disrespect me, I'm gonna put my hands on you. Because our grandparents and great grandparents were like that. You ain't finna come in my space and interrupt my peace with your disrespect and think it's not gonna be an issue. So we have a difference of opinion. And when I referenced earlier about the adversity, and it might sound messed up, but I think it's part of the communication issue is us and Gen X, we're trying to figure out what is millennials and zillennials struggle that makes them so angry, because we don't see it. Not saying that y'all don't have struggles. It's just your struggles are, we look at your struggles as suburban struggles. Because when we were young kids, we knew kids who were not just well off, but we knew kids who were taken care of. And we saw how they, how can I say this? We saw how they could get stumped out. I'm going to say it that way. Because we saw that they were angry. Like if I tripped and fell and we laugh and everybody laughs, I laugh too, because I tripped and fell. It's funny. I didn't hurt my little self or whatever, but it's hilarious. But then if we saw somebody like a millennial or a zillennial trip and fall and people laugh, it was more that thing where, they came across like, I hope everybody who laughs at me dies. I hope everybody in your family dies. And it's like, how did you go from that to that? And it's like, what's the backstory of the anger? Because we came up, like I said, the crack era, the violence, the quote unquote, drugs, the abuse, the violence just being a normal thing. Our grandparents was our getaway, in all honesty. So when people are telling their stories and it's like, well, I got rejected. And we're like, yeah, but you acting like a sociopath for reasons that we don't understand. I could say, a lot of things happen to boomers that messed them up. I know boomers who got molested or was around molesters, or boomers who got who was trying to, how can I say this, finesse in life, and they really got pressed. Like their parents got pressed in Jim Crow and it broke them. They just kind of went, how can I say this? Went all metaphysical and didn't want to really deal in reality. There were things that actually broke them. The difference was the silent generation or the greatest generation. They was like, listen, man, I ain't got time to be broken. But all this trauma is a luxury. So some of us in Gen X, we look at trauma as a luxury. You got a lot of time on your hands to talk about all the things, your traumas that you've been through. And then we listening to your traumas and it's like, it doesn't add up to the anger. You get what I'm saying? It don't add up. It don't equate with us. Like you might say that, hey man, I use myself for an example. I have, when I was in Chicago, the next door was a trap house. And next door, they used to have shootouts, like in the little middle part, because there were no gates, in between the houses. So they used to have shootouts at the house next door, in between the house. So my bedroom was basically next to the shootouts, right? And the shootouts was so often. For one, the police wouldn't come on my street. There's one cop I seen on my street the whole time I was there, and he pulled a gun out. Well, he was about to arrest me for walking outside. You get what I'm saying? But at the same time, the shootouts were so prevalent. Like I tell people, like when I went to college, I couldn't sleep because it was too quiet. No gunshots, no police sirens, no hospital sirens, none of the urban gunplay noises. So it's like, okay. And it was so bad, I guess, I was on the phone with my best friend and it was a shootout and I'm just having a conversation. And he's like, yo, bro, I'm on the floor right now ducking. Like, what are you why are you still talking? And I'm like, bro, this happens all the time. Like, this doesn't really bother me like that. And this fool almost got me killed like 2 years prior to that. So it was like interesting with that. It's an interesting dynamic. Um, but unfortunately, that's our upbringing, right? And a lot of us have more of that upbringing than not. We're kind of desensitized to how bad the environment can get. And a lot of us tried to make it, even when we became parents, young or whatever, we made it easier for millennials and zillennials. And sometimes the baby boomers made it easier for millennials because sometimes the baby boomers are having children late. So they were a little bit better off in life. So and they weren't as out of control as they were when we were younger. So the boomers' kids wound up being millennials and they were softer. And we could see it. You get what I'm saying? I don't want my baby to do this and baby do that. And what happened and what we mean by softer, the situation I said how I grew up, you know what I'm saying? In third ward, which third ward? We talking about New Orleans or Houston? Because I was born in the ninth ward, New Orleans, baby. Don't play with me. No. But my younger cousins who were millennials, they were kind of trying to be in my environment to have a story to tell. You get what I'm saying? Shout out to H-Town. Yeah. I'm coming to visit you because it's wild out there. It's like, what, you act like you finna survive or something like, and I never forget it because my young cousin, rest his soul, when he came to visit us, my mother, and I went to like football practice, like summertime or whatever. So I went to work out and I came back home. And my little cousin was like, hey, man, I'm not going outside till you go outside. I was like, what happened? He's like, man, I went outside and I didn't realize that these niggas crazy. And I was like, you tried to, and I knew him. I knew he was going to try to act like he was, you know what I'm saying? I'm from here and I do this and I'm that. And he wanted to buck up and act like he was about that. He didn't realize the dudes that was outside they was really about that. So it was a culture shock, but they were more attracted to that. The same thing I would say with the boomers. They were like, whether people know it or not, they were coddled. They were more so like suburban kids because their parents put them in good situations. And what happened was, and that's why we talk about, the community the way we do is it's a lot of, what do you call that? It's a lot of wasted generational wealth. Like, y'all don't realize the amount of things that baby boomers inherited from their parents in the silent generation and the greatest generation. Y'all don't really realize how much they've given up. And and we're looking at it because I can tell you, like us and Gen X, we remember, quote unquote, grandma's house or big mama's house or this, that, and the third. We remember the house being passed down to this person or that person. And, we remember people effing up, financially, and they had a lot of dumb luck because they were getting windfalls from their parents and grandparents. So we watched them just squander a lot of quote unquote black wealth. And some of them got hooked on drugs, and some of them just wanted to party and gamble, and some of them used to just it wasn't vacationing like it is now. It was more so like partying, gambling, drinking, smoking, sex, a lot of hedonism, like that Studio 54 type of life. You know what I'm saying? So we've watched it and we're seeing it all over again because one of the things they brought up was Generation X has more money. We're under the baby boomers now. No. We're under the solid. We got more money than the baby boomers, and millennials, of course, because they're younger, and we're under the silent generation. So financially, we've done more than the baby boomers, and we had less from them, right? So we already know we're primed to be in the next generation who has to dole down, like when that generation dies off completely, and it's the baby boomers. We're financially in a space to be taking care of the baby boomers and the millennials and zillennials. And for us, we're looking at three generations, one above us, two below us, who really don't, who really are more free spirited on somebody else's dime than anybody else. So we're lost in that. And a lot of y'all don't like how. Like, it's like, look, man, we can tell y'all not gonna see it because just like the baby boomers, were the sons and daughters of the greatest generation and the silent generation and the economic boom in the society. And when they lived off of that boom, they didn't have kids like that. So we became the kids, like, and plus, the violence, the quote unquote incarceration, and y'all talking about the war on drugs, a lot of that really happened to Gen X. So part of our numbers is down is because it was really going down with our generation. So now what we're seeing is, the culmination how can I say this, of us becoming our grandparents, and we're not liking the generations below us, and we don't like the generation above us because we're gonna have to take care of y'all fools, and y'all we don't see y'all intending to ever actually lift a finger to pull yourself up. Same thing with the college thing, right? Truth is, college, the baby boomers got over on college. They got educated like I don't know what for cheap. And me being Gen X, I got lucky because I didn't have to pay no exorbitant amount for college per se. You know what I'm saying? Partial scholarships, track or whatever. I kept it to a minimum. I wound up graduating. When I graduated, I owed not even like 2,000, like 600 or something, right? So I paid that off or whatever. But I saw school going up and up and up and up and up in price. So I was lucky to miss that boat. People still did it because I know people who still owed 40, 60, 90,000. So, but that was my first lesson when I got to Southern in Baton Rouge. They told us a story about a guy who went to Tulane and he graduated like magna cum laude or something. And he did a speech and he was like, he graduated, but he's terrified because he owed like $250,000 or like 125. It was one or the other, but he owed that much in student loans and he didn't know what he was going to do for a living. So we kind of was like, oh, I'm not playing this game like that. That was happening to our generation too, but we found more ways around it. And because of that, we're not the generation that goes to college and comes home and lives with our parents. That's not our MO. But millennials, zillennials, the meal plan was trifling. But millennials and zillennials, they intend to go, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna go back home. I'm gonna go back to college, I'm gonna go back home. It's like, hold up. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely true, fam. And I don't think for us it's a big issue. Like, it's like, okay, you think it's our fault? It's our fault. I think one of the things that happens is we're getting blamed. We're actually getting blamed for things that baby boomers do or have done. And we're getting blamed for things millennials are doing. And it's like, and we're getting blamed for the things zillennials are doing. It's like, and zillennials, I say zillennials are our problem. Because that's 9 times out of 10 our kids. And I see it because it's like two things are going on. Like I've seen a lot of baby boomers very involved with their children. And it's the same MO. We're very involved with the children. We come from rough places. and we don't look like we come from rough places, and our kids are soft. You get what I'm saying? And we had these conversations like, hey man, you need to dog. We already know how this gonna end. You keep letting this kid do this and do that, and it's not. We're not saying soft in a bad way, like what we're saying is these kids are soft in the sense of we're coddling them from adversity. We were thrown out there like, you got in a fight. Okay, did you win? No. Well, go back outside until you win. It wasn't I got into a fight and I need therapy. I'm gonna get you some therapy because I was traumatized when I was a child. When I had to fight this kid, and the kid beat me up, they made me go fight the kid. And I don't want you to go through that. And it's like, yes, you do. Because if you don't, guess who's gonna be raising your grandkid? You. Because your kid gonna be going to therapy for a myriad of things. So it's like, no, we got a problem. So I think Zillennials, that's definitely on us. Or Zillennials, Alpha, whatever you want to call it. But then we look at like millennials, it's like, yo, when y'all having kids, like I'm gonna say this and it's gonna be messed up. I've seen more Gen Xers, okay, from what I've seen, who says, look, I came up rough. The family situation wasn't the best. I'm not going to try to repeat that. I've seen that, people succeeded, people failed, but people made an effort regardless. And what I've seen of millennials is, I hate to say this, I'm not going to be nothing like my parents kind of mentality. And what winds up happening is they feel like they got done dirty as a child and they don't want to be nothing like their parents. And then they become parents and they're worse parents than their parents. And they can't see it. It's like, well, I'm gonna just go get high. I'm gonna just go party. I'm gonna just act like I ain't paying attention. It's like, oh, okay. So you said you was hurt so bad by your parents the minute you started having children. You're gonna say F your own kids. Okay. And you're seeing Gen X like, nah, dog, you gonna raise that kid. I'm not gonna raise that kid for you. You stuck with that kid. And then the kids get worse because they're in an environment that doesn't cater to them being good at anything. You know what I'm saying? That becomes the problem. So at some point we're gonna have to take over anyways. Because it's like, dang, man, this kid 5, this kid ain't, my child ain't got it together yet. Well, Gen X is like, these kids ain't got it together yet. What's gonna happen next? I'm gonna have to step in. That's what's gonna happen next. So we don't look at it the same. Our communication is completely different. Our thought pattern is completely different. So now, people don't realize it, but we don't look at millennials and zillennials as having good morals. And it might sound weird coming from Gen X because we were a violent generation. I'm gonna just be honest. We were a violent generation. We were aggressive. We were violent. We were, we were the last era of good football. You understand what I'm saying? We like that contact. We were the last era of aggressive basketball. We like that. Right now, Gen X seems like the last era of good fighters. You get what I'm saying? So when you look at the millennials and zillennials, it's like, oh my God, this is what you're doing. Thank you, Toya. What's up? So now we have that issue. And we understand being nostalgic and like, oh, look, I feel I'm better than you because of blah, blah, blah. Because we used to get that same thing from our parents and our grandparents. When we would listen to music, that's the jam. They be like, boy, cut that trash off, boy. That ain't no real music, boy. Get out of here with that stupid stuff, boy. You need to play that. And the difference was we got into that type of stuff. We got into the old school, what we considered old school. All, even a Mahalia Jackson, to shoot, I keep going on. I just thought about that. Let me just say the whole Motown era, the whole Stax era. Who else was killing it? New York the jazz scene. We were more eclectic as far as we listened to everything. We had Grover Washington and John Coltrane and Thelonious Monk, plus the gospel. Wound up with the Mississippi Mass Choir, James Cleveland. We were while we were listening to quote unquote rap and R&B as it was, we were still involved in that older stuff, and that wasn't just a music and entertainment thing. That was also an education thing, because they used to make us, we used to have to know what was going on in school, because a lot of us didn't like school. You know what I'm saying? And I remember the statement being made like, listen, I'm going to tell you, learn what you got to learn in that school, and we're going to teach you the real stuff when you get home. Stop, like, don't be arguing with them people. They're gonna give you that BS, that brainwashing stuff. It ain't real. Just write the answers down on the test as that's the right answers. And when you get home, we ask a question, we're gonna give you the information. That's how it was. We still went to the library. We still had we still read the books. We still, all of the stuff that millennials and zillennials see now. Y'all don't like. We were the bridge between analog and technology. You know what I'm saying? Because we had the video game started with us. The beeper to the cell phone, to that brick Motorola. They called it the mobile phone, to the cell phone. You know what I'm saying? Even the early internet. I remember it was in high school, but it was slow as a mug. We grew up with all those things. We went from the rotary phone to now the smartphone. Like, we get it. We see how things, how some of the old things work and some of the new things work, and we know which ones are better. And what we see now is y'all don't realize how messed up that is, because y'all think everything that's new is better, and it's not true. And we had to learn a lesson too. Like I saw a comedian joke about, he said, if something new, it don't make it better, because if that's the case, all you basketball fans would be wearing LeBrons, but y'all wear Jordans. Y'all ain't from the same generation as Jordan. You're not. We grew up on Jordan. Y'all grew up on LeBron. Y'all should be wearing Kobe's and LeBrons. You know what I'm saying? But y'all don't, because what happened then is more impressive than what happens now. The mystique is completely different. Schoolboy. So now we have an issue, and that issue is communication, and it's going to stay communication, because I think our moral compasses aren't the same. I really think we're completely different morally, because a lot of what we're seeing from millennials and zillennials, and we've seen it from baby boomers, is this idea that you could lie to me to my face and just keep talking and act like it's okay. That's not how we grew up. Or you can tell me a half truth, and just because you kept talking, that makes it okay. Or you can say something, or you can be passive aggressive and say a bunch of mean spirited things and insults back to back to back, and I don't respond. But then when I respond, you go, "Oh, you tripping." It's like we have a completely different moral compass, because we weren't raised to say, if I can't just casually, sarcastically keep disrespecting you and expect nothing in return. That's not how we grew up. That is not how we grew up whatsoever. It's like, yo, y'all got, no, we can't have it. And see, and going back to like corporal punishment and discipline, because you got to remember, when I was a kid, the teachers could put a paddle out and whip you. They used to have the paddles in a classroom. The principal used to have the paddles at the office. You get what I'm saying? They pull out the ruler and smack you. The teachers, it was like, with us, we were the transition to corporal punishment not being a thing. We transitioned from, everybody could discipline you, to can't nobody discipline my child. We actually grew up in that shift. So we saw how everything changed. You get what I'm saying? We just saw how it changed, and it's like, I'm not feeling this. And it's not about quote unquote violence or anything. It's about, we don't understand how the concept you violate, I demonstrate don't exist no more. That doesn't equate to us. Like, everything is in a talking moment. And plus, we believe that all that talking means you trying to finesse me. it's like since the NFL playoffs about to start soon, it's like somebody it's like a team that showed up to play versus a team that showed up to talk. And the society says the talking team won because the playing team is not supposed to do anything. And it feels out of place. He's like, we're here to play football. We're not here to have a debate. So how did the debater win? We beat this team 63-0 because they talked all day. And it's like, well, you don't understand. You feel, they were expressing their feelings, and we're going to go to the highlights about how they felt about, that block that you did. You gave them a concussion. That was so wrong. We threw flags on everything you did because even though you won 63-0, we feel as though the team that scored no points felt better than you. And it's like, oh, okay, I can't mess with y'all. Y'all crazy. Just like our approach seems crazy, y'all approach seems crazy. Yeah, like exactly. Respect is an option. Like I told something to my lady that she wanted to tell to her mother, and she's like, oh, yeah, it is true. I was telling her, I said, sometimes the issue now is you have younger generations who believe that discipline is disrespect. You know what I'm saying? And consequences is trauma. And or consequences is toxic. And it's like, it just, that whole ideology don't equate to us. It don't equate to us. A lot of folks, because something that happened with Jeff, he said, a brother felt disrespected. He apologized to the brother, and the brother said, F you. So it's like the guy wanted an apology because he felt like he was wrong. Jeff gave him an apology because he's like, okay, my bad, I'm sorry. I didn't know I offended you. And then he said, no, F you. And it's like, wait a minute. So you never wanted an apology. You just wanted the opportunity to say F a person. You get what I'm saying? That becomes an issue. And that's when it comes to the, people blame the single mother type of thing, because what's happening is we're seeing grown men conduct themselves like baby mamas or high school mean girls, and they don't see anything wrong with it. And even at the same time, that's why you're seeing a lot of these young ladies and young women say these guys are acting like a bunch of broads. Because now they're seeing how they act in real time with their same age group, because they act the same because they was raised by the same type of person. And it's like, oh, and are you supposed to be a man, a real man? It's like, listen, man, that young boy was taught to do his hair, be fashionable, and say what he feel and he think, because there's no replication and I mean, no replication. No consequences for what he says. And at the same time, you don't realize it, but he was taught to believe that how can I say this? He's a human being that doesn't have to be a human doing. When we weren't raised like that, we were raised that you are a human being that has to be a human doing. You can't just be and think that's all good. We weren't raised like that. So now we just don't mix. You know what I'm saying? We just don't mix well, because it doesn't make sense to us. Like a lot of what's going on, it just doesn't make sense to us. And it's sad, because I don't think Gen X might not get along with anybody but their grandkids. Just being honest with you. And unfortunately, and I'm not trying to throw millennials and zillennials under the bus. If they keep this free-spirited, thing going, they're going to be looked at horribly in history. Because when you look at even, I'd say this, when you look at the silent generation, the greatest generation, even baby boomers and Generation X, you can think of things that each generation created. Right now, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't think of anything millennials or zillennials created. Oh, you know what I'm saying? I think they're just, they're kind of living off of everything that was done prior, which is not necessarily a bad thing. The question is, can they make improvements on it? And I don't see them making improvements on it either. And that's why they kind of looked at us baby boomers, because it's like, hey man, I was born and the family was up. I ain't got to do nothing. You get what I'm saying? You say millennials created BBLs. That's trifling. Because our grandparents weren't as narcissistic, since we're going to use those words. Our grandparents weren't all, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Our parents were that, like, all that, whether y'all realize it or not, a lot of the bad behavior, the ratchet behavior, and I hate to say this, it was like really a lot of baby boomers started that, for you ladies, that's where y'all got the hair coloring and the weaves and the da-da-da-da, and it was them, and it just, some Gen X took it and made it worse, and then millennials made it worse, and now zillennials think it's normal. It's like, no, this is bad. This is bad. So now y'all don't get it. So now it's like, look, we got to figure this out, because we're not trying to be the next generation's bailout plan. But I'm gonna leave it at that. I wanted to talk about it, but I'm gonna get up out of here, man, because I got a video that's gonna upload in like 5 minutes. So, if y'all tell me what you think, leave a message or whatever. But I'm gonna figure I got to get out of here and do some things, because I got to go somewhere. I really do. So take care, like, share, subscribe, or die trying. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace.
This looks like a job for Superman.
Do this,
Spoken from the lips of the young or the old, fear of me.
Yeah. Gotta put it all in.
And they are Superman.
All the way.
I guess I'm taking off the cape through the glasses in the trash. Being super is great, saving y'all is such a drag. Even God took a break, me I ain't coming back. I got one life to live, if you don't like it, that's your ass. Cause nobody saved me, plus when I walk, I'm just a peon. I could use somebody just like I'm the kings of neon. This world is cold as ice, mixed with salt, mixed with freon. They got me pissed off, but that's better than being peed on. For eons, human beings took kindness for weakness. When you constipated, you start to appreciate shit. Put before you life and death, and you just gotta choose. The kryptonite life means you still follow the rules. If your credit's messed up or your bills ain't paid, then it's getting disconnected. Can't nobody say the day. And I can fly, leave a building in a single bound, but I can't stand fair weather friends, and I just fly around. My super friends in Justice League, only folk I kick it with. Kill Lex Luthor, so what, we had to finish it. Kids play games and adults play for keeps, and me, I play to win, but I ain't playing in these streets. And life is not a joke, then again it ain't this serious. Superman can say the day, but God can say the Superman. Saga of the kryptonite life just ended. You enjoy listening? Man, I finished it.
Lois, come holler at me. I got an iced couch. Thank you for coming out. Listen, I knew you would like it because we made it. I'm so frigid and so fly.